Give us some things, players-wise, team-wise, coaching-wise, whatever is on the Brad Sham checklist for training camp.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is really getting a personal relationship established with members of the coaching staff. If you think about it, we haven't been around those guys for 3 years. So, obviously I have one with McCarthy, and we've been in front of some of them. There's, for one reason or another, there are now some of the ones who were here before, Kellen Moore and Nussmeier and George Edwards I've known for a long time, but some of those other guys, we, and when I say we, none of us who follow them every day, we haven't had an opportunity like we, I think, are going to have now. It seems to be back to normal. Practice is over. You just walk up to the tight ends coach, Lunda Wells, and tell me about Ferguson and establish a personal relationship with him, not just for information to get today, but that you really begin to pay dividends throughout the year. They have to know you to be willing to tell you anything of substance. So we haven't had a chance to do that. And I think the same thing, Sean, with any third-year player. I don't think there's a handful of them, if not just third-year player. New play. Some of those new guys last year, like there were some of them that were veterans that we were able to have on the Cowboy Hour, and so then I could establish that I'm not just every face that they see every day, so that I can walk up and talk to them. J. Ron Curse, I established a nice relationship with him last year, but most of those guys haven't had a chance to do that. So that's my first thing, is to get to know some of these guys a little more personally, and then the first few days, they're not in pads, so the only thing that's really of interest to me is when they walk out there for their walkthroughs. It doesn't mean that whoever walks out with the ones on Wednesday for the first practice is the starter, but it means that they're the first ones out there today.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got to pay attention to that. We've learned, Christy Scales and I talk about this all the time, we look forward to some of these early practices, especially when the pads come on, because the punt team is the one that will give you a little tip on who they're thinking about keeping, because that's an important specialty unit, and they usually don't put guys on that first punt team who they're not planning on using. So that's a kind of a tip-off. So that's first, is to figuring out who some of these guys are and establishing some relationships with them.
Brad Sham here on The Fan. How about some individual players or position battles that you're intrigued by?
Yeah, obviously, all of the wide receivers who are not named C.D. Lamb, all of them, because we're not going to see Gallup, I'm sure, for quite a while. And, I think Tolbert will be ready to do some things. And I did have a chance to meet James Washington at a sponsor golf tournament during the spring, and I was impressed with him just as a person. But he's a guy who's got some experience in the league, so I'm watching him. But, you're watching all of those young wide receivers, including guys who none of us could name right now, to see if anybody jumps out and seems like they're ready to step in and help. And I think that, obviously Tyler Smith, but the other rookie tackle that they drafted, and I want to see Steele. Is Steele? I understand he's supposed to start, but is he more than a backup tackle? I don't know.
Right.
We have to watch him. We have to see. And I'm also really interested in all those young, like rookie last year defensive linemen who got a chance to play, and they looked like they flashed and did some stuff. And sometimes, as we all know, year two is when they take the biggest step. So Golston and Odigizua, can we see that out of them? Because that, I think, would be a big deal. And Sam Williams, I'm interested in seeing Sam Williams, because I think he has a chance to be better than we think, sooner than we think. And if he is, then that would take a little bit of a chunk out of the loss of Gregory, possibly. Now, once they start putting pads on, I'm really interested to see Fowler and see what Dan Quinn's able to connect with him to get out of him. He's had a couple of productive years in the league and many more that were less than where Jacksonville drafted him. But I think if he were to be even a 9 or 10 sack guy with some consistency, that would make you look at things a lot differently. So there is, as the late great Spike Dykes used to say, there is more than a little bit to look at out there.
Brad Sham, voice of the Cowboys, joins us here 105 through the Fan. We talked about this earlier, and this is hearkening back, and I love to hearken, you know that, to last year.
I do.
The Kellen, Amari, CD, Dak, whose responsibility is it to get the guy the football, and Amari talking about how, it wasn't maybe used or targeted or focused on enough. Do you put it on Kellen, or do you put it on the quarterback, to get him the ball? Did Troy Aikman need Norv Turner to tell him to throw to Michael Irvin?
That's a great example, RJ, of why it's not that simple. Because it wasn't just all about Norv telling Troy to throw it to Michael. Because that all had to do with how they used Emmett and how everybody blocked. What you're bringing up is a tremendous question, because there's no doubt that the off season, the offense in the second half of the season, Denver was the first time they got hit in the mouth. Kansas City was not good. Cooper didn't play against Kansas City, did he? I'm trying to remember, but I think that was one of his COVID games. So. Then they clearly, except for maybe a couple of games against really depleted teams, like what they did against Philadelphia at the end, you can't even count that.
Yeah.
So it's the whole shooting match. Are they calling the same plays? Are they blocking well enough? Is the quarterback seeing it? Is he feeling something that's not there? Are the receivers getting open? I do know this as it pertains to Lamb. When Witten was a really young rookie, second-year guy, and I don't know if you remember, but Parcells used to say from time to time, we got to get the ball to Witten. And I would ask Babe on the air, because we talked about it off the air, I would say, Babe, they keep saying they want to get the ball to Witten. How do they do that? And Babe said, well, you throw it to him. And that is how I feel about CeeDee Lamb. Now, Lamb's going to now get coverage, that he didn't get before. And sometimes Cooper was doubled, and sometimes either Dak didn't hook up with him because he couldn't see him, or Cooper wasn't really open. But there were times he was single covered, and that'll be the same way with Lamb. But Lamb will get a lot of extra attention until some of these other players demonstrate that they merit being covered. And by the way, part of all of this in the mix, which will not really be discernible in training camp, is how do they use Pollard? They talked last year, I will not forget, that early in camp, after pads went on, and they were talking about the diversity of the offense, and they were talking especially about Pollard and Jarwin, and McCarthy answered questions about it. And because of Jarwin's ability to run kind of Novacek-like routes, and Pollard having been a wide receiver, and we saw him work at wide receiver in camp and in the off season, I was envisioning that they would sometimes Pollard would line up at running back, but he wasn't going to be a running back on this play. Much the same way that Pittsburgh used Bell. Yeah, Le'Veon Bell. Before he kind of went south, they'd line him up in running back, but he's not a running back on this play. He's a wide receiver. But you don't know how to cover him. And I thought they were going to do that with both Pollard and Jarwin, and they didn't do it with either one. Now, the offense the first half of the year, none of us could complain about it. It was fine.
Yeah. But
they don't have the same personnel. So the question, RJ, that you're bringing up, was it Dak? Was it Cooper? Will it be Lamb? It's not just that. It's all of this stuff. Everything's got to work. That's why these other wide receivers are so important. the better those other guys are, the better Lamb has a chance to be, and then you've got to throw the tight ends in there too.
All right, so your one absolutely mandatory hot spot. I know you usually hit up a Dodger game, which Klay Thompson was celebrating at yesterday, but what's the California go-to spot that we will run into you at or know that you're going to?
I don't know if we'll get. I don't know what the Dodgers' schedule is. That's a good one because at this stage of my career, I'm a little less concerned about hotspot. I think I'd just be honored to be invited to hang out with you guys.
Oh, wow. That sounds so genuine.
Well,
and
bring
legit.
cash because we go to the Rudder Room.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know. The Rudder Room and I have a relationship now where I can just drive by and wave at it and get the same effect of what that you guys
Well, there's no
get by
smell.
hanging.
You don't get the smell when you just drive by.
No, you don't. You have to go to the Rudder Room once. I wish everyone could experience the Rudder Room because it is an experience. And Sean, it's mostly there's a few restaurants that I like to get to, and I do think I might have a chance when we're in Denver. This is not exactly what you asked, but it's in the spirit. I think there's a chance that I might get to Red Rocks. And I think it's a pretty good concert where we have some time in the evening, one of the nights that we are in Denver, the week before they play the Broncos. So that might be the answer.